2-day conference on a Friday afternoon. So attentions are running short, I know. And I anticipated that maybe attentions would be running short. So with some friends, maybe brainstormed a different approach to our last panel of a 2-day conference on a Friday afternoon. So we're gonna have fun, we are. We're gonna do something different. I don't know if you've ever maybe even done anything like this before. And it involves some support from the audience. We got Tim Belden here. So before I get into what I'm calling a game called What's the Line? What's the line? And the over-under game. Thank you. I know it's an energy thing, right? We're bringing some energy to this last panel. What's the line? Anyways, I'm going to introduce our esteemed panel. With me, I have PacifiCorp, who's the CEO of Idaho Power. We have a couple microphones, and then we have Mary Kipp, CEO of Puget Sound Energy, Jessica Matlock, CEO of PNGC Power, and Cindy Crane, CEO of PacifiCorp. And at the end there, we have Elliot Mainzer. I know you heard that. Yes, we have our token mail at the end of the panel. This is a powerful panel, and I just appreciate all of you for staying to hear what the insights about the future from these CEOs. And again, like I said, we're going to have a little bit of fun. So this is an over-under game. I don't do a whole lot of gambling, betting, whatever. My friend had to explain this to me a little bit, so I'm going to take some time to set this up. But here's the idea. Like I mentioned, I've been working with Tim Belden. He is going to be our odds maker. And what he has done is he has set the line on questions about the West's energy future. So things like resource additions, peak demand, natural gas prices, power prices, and transmission. A lot of the same things that all of the panels have been talking about over the last 2 days. We're going to ask the CEOs to maybe project the future on that. Information prepared by Tim, that information prepared by Tim, it'll be used to set up each future-facing question. So Tim has set the lines based on research, publicly available data, and his own market instincts. Do you not have a microphone? Okay. All right.
Do you have the clicker?
I do have the clicker, and I am supposed to have the clicker.
Yes.
Yes.
I was trying to be really subtle. You keep going.
Again, we've never done anything like this before, so hang with us.
The game has begun.
Yes. Okay. Like I was saying, Tim has set the line based on this information and his own market instincts. And I'm going to read the question and ask each CEO to weigh in. And the way that they are going to weigh in, you saw me passing these out while Matt was introducing me. We have whiteboards. Thank you for showing them. That's what I said. If you're in the back of the room, you may not see the answers, and you're going to miss out. Then you're going to miss out if you don't move forward. Anyways, they're going to use these whiteboards to write down the answers. And it isn't until after they share their answers that we're going to reveal Tim's line. So you got it? We're going to set up each question with some research, data. Some of it Tim shared yesterday. We're going to build off of that. Then the CEOs are going to write down where they think Tim set the line. They're going to share it with the audience. Then we will reveal Tim's line and have a little discussion about it. So the goal really of this game is to spark conversation about what these CEOs see coming and where they think Tim may have missed the mark. So This is a fun way to end the week, but it's also a chance to hear what these CEOs really think. All right, let's get into it. Here we go. Tim shared this yesterday. We've got it up here. Pay close attention. I think maybe some people missed it, this data yesterday. We're going to start with supply. Lots of conversation about supply, what we might need in the future, and whether we're actually able to procure enough of that supply. So the first question for these CEOs is for the US portion of the WEC, what will be the average annual nameplate capacity additions, average annual, so a number, but this is over the years 2028 through 2030. Again, this is future focused. We're looking for a number, but it's an average of those years. And Tim has put together some charts that I'll highlight. Tim, you weigh in here. This first chart, again, are resource additions. There, I can see it better here. Sorry. Those resource additions from 2021 to 2025. 2025 is just the first half of the year, so that's why it's a little bit lower. Resource additions by region. By state. And we've lumped a couple states together to create a region. So we have California, pretty big additions in that state. Then we have the Pacific Northwest, so the 4 Northwest states, and the Desert Southwest and the Rockies. So these are resource additions from 2021 to 2025 by region. I talked to Tim about technology. So we add a little bit of information that you didn't see yesterday on the technology. Lots of conversation this week about, or over the last few days, about the different types and a mix of resources. You know, we heard Nicole Hughes from Renewable Northwest give her prediction about the near-term future for renewables. What we see is these additions by type, really battery, solar, and wind over the last few years. Recent additions by technology, by state. So we kind of broke it out another bit of information here. So we have by type, by technology, by the region. So we see a couple things here, right? We see California really developing a lot of resources in the state of California. Clarified by Tim, this is in-state generation. So that's a ton of battery, a lot of solar. The other thing we see here is the Pacific Northwest states, these 4 Northwest states. Over the last few years, about 5,000 megawatts. Just what that's it. I'm sure this panel has some ideas about that. With all of that information, the data displayed, Tim, anything I missed there important?
Let's play the game.
Okay. All right. So Tim set the line. I'm not going to forward the slide because that's where Tim's line is. But we're going to have the CEOs reveal the answer. How are we doing on time? Okay. I'm going to make sure everybody's ready to reveal your answer. I'm not going to change what maybe your staff gave you based on what we're showing right here.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right, CEOs, reveal your answers. All right, I have Lisa here at 12 gigawatts. That's the average one number, right? I have Mary at 18,500, about 18 gigawatts, a little bit more. Jessica at 12,000 megawatts, 12 gigawatts. Cindy, we'll get very specific. 15,600 megawatts.
That's like me.
All right, and Elliot, I can't see yours. There you go. 12,500. You and Jessica are really close. Yes, yes. All right, okay. Let's see where Tim put the line. 11,500 megawatts. Tim's a little less optimistic than you guys. Yeah. Elliot, you want to say anything about California? Why has California been so successful in adding resources? Why are you optimistic about 12,000?
Well, I think we all know that it is certainly not just California. I mean, obviously, the demand signal to focus on resource adequacy. I think a lot of people, a lot of emphasis on taking friction out of the system on interconnection queue reform. Obviously, there's a little bit of latency before some of that catches up, and there's some developmental headwinds. But I look around, I see every utility trying to figure out where they can onboard. We know we've got RA issues, and they need to happen in California. No different than anybody else. We're catching up with the net peak, but with batteries and solar and other resources on, we just got to keep going. So I think generally, I'm not irrationally exuberant, but I'm fairly bullish that we're going to keep making progress.
Fairly bullish. All right. Mary, you were really bullish.
Yes, my team's really bullish. No, in all seriousness, I know all of us up here want to say thank you to our teams because they have done a ton to help us. When I first looked at these questions, my response was, I have no idea. So thank you guys for educating me. So the numbers that we've looked at PSC, they range anywhere from, I think, about 15 to 2,100 megawatts. And I would have picked on the lower end because if you look at the numbers from 2018 to 2023, folks built about 76% of what they planned. 2024 was actually worse. Folks built 53% overall of what they planned. That said, the big beautiful bill and the guidance coming out of it, while overall I think a negative, actually has a positive aspect in terms of the tax guidance that we've gotten recently. And this isn't on my team, so if this doesn't make sense, this is all me. I think we're going to see people pulling forward projects, particularly wind and solar, to qualify for those windows that we've been given. So I think we're going to see generation that otherwise would have come online later actually come online more quickly.
Nicole Hughes, Renewable Northwest, she shared the same thing with this group this morning.
And that proves I know what I'm talking about.
Good coordination, and she asked for support. Yes, yeah. Anybody else?
Well, I would just echo and in support of Mary's rationale because I think the administration has triggered off a gold rush, and these projects are going to be rushing to get in under the wire within the window that's been created. And so now that being said, we still discounted how much we were thinking, and that about 85% of what we thought. But we do think we are in an unprecedented 3-year window here, and people need to make money and they need to move.
They need to move.
And thank you for my team as well, because I wouldn't have the answers.
Yeah, Jessica, jump in.
Just so, from my perspective, I can see what you're talking about in regards to rushing, but here's how it's been working in the field, is that I had 2 large solar projects that I started permitting a couple years ago, and they're barely getting under the wire. And so if you're not already through the permitting, you've already ordered the equipment, you're out of luck. So, I had a rush to get a transformer ordered before the big beautiful bill went in because there was going to be a rush on the equipment, so the supply chain is out, and so are the panels. So if we think there's going to be a rush on building, unless they already bought the panels and the transformers and they got the permitting, it's not going to happen.
Tim, we included your points about where you set the line. You set it a little bit below where the CEOs came in. But it seems like everybody has kind of the same suggestions for why they think this is going to be a big build over this period of time on average. Anything to add there?
I would just say, well, one, I think we're all in the zone, right? I'm 500 megs off the 12 gigs. I would just like to say thanks everybody for inviting me. Crystal, thanks for having me. I bring a lot of humility to this conversation. There's a lot of uncertainty around this, and I got a lot of respect for what you guys, the challenges that you have. I'd also point out that I looked, collectively, I think their teams are about 12,000 people. And my team that worked on this was 3 of us. And so I bring in my best, and I'm bringing some humility as well. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the research that went into it because it was an interesting way, I hope, for all of us to digest the data and to think about what it means. This range, 11.5 gigawatts to 18 gigawatts, feels like a little bit more than what we have been doing, right? So if you're a large transmission provider, should you be thinking that things might drop out of the queue, or do you think they might be hoping to get access faster than what they're getting now? Any thoughts about that?
So I just wanted to first welcome you all to Boise. So I hope you have enjoyed your time here. I hope you're going to spend some time and leave some money behind. So great, thank you for being here. So I think we also have to think about, we're talking about nameplate capacity, and so obviously the renewables have a much higher number, and so we can't underestimate the policy shift, and so the load requirements, even if they stay the same, which they move around a lot anyway, but if they were to stay fixed and we just had to shift from renewables to gas, let's say, your number's gonna go down. So it's not necessarily on capacity. So it's not necessarily to say that these projects are gonna go away or that we will have unmet need, but it is for transmission providers and for those that are building. Having to switch gears is not a trivial thing. So,
Right.
So it's just it's a multi-variable problem we're trying to solve in real time with all of the variables changing all
Good
the time.
points, Lisa. Very good points. Okay. So how about we move from what we think we're going to build to talk about what we think we're going to need. All right, some more data here. And I'll orient everyone to this because we are going to ask the CEOs. This is about peak demand, and specifically peak demand in winter and summer. I'll get that. So it's forward-looking again, winter 2029, 2030, and summer 2030. So specifically, what will be the observed coincident peak hourly demand, just the Pacific Northwest states balancing authorities in those seasons? And Tim has pulled together some historic peak demand data for the Northwest. Again, our first question was on what are we going to build? Hopefully a lot. Now we're shifting to just the Pacific Northwest on demand. And we're looking at demand data that Tim pulled together from the Energy Information Administration. And we know the numbers have been climbing. On the chart, we see winter on top, summer on bottom, those winter and summer months by year. This is demand. I see the CEOs writing winter, summer demand down. Gonna give them a little bit of time. Tim, anything before I flip? Okay. I was hoping you'd give me a second to pick this up. All right, before I flip to Tim's answer, we're gonna hear from the CEOs on winter and summer demand. Winter for Lisa, 39 gigawatts, summer, 36 gigawatts. For Mary, winter, 46,100 megawatts. Summer, 44,800 megawatts. With a question mark about data center. Winter for Jessica, 42 gigawatts. Summer, 38. Oh, and she has for data centers, we'll get to it. Winter 38 gigawatts, summer 37 gigawatts. Elliot over here, winter 40 gigawatts, and summer 38 gigawatts. So, yeah, everybody's kind of close. I was looking here at Lisa's, still very much winter peaking, but I see summer edging up to that winter peak. It's getting hotter here, a lot of air conditioning, lots of electricity to power those air conditioners. And then we don't know about data center demand exactly, but we see it coming, there's evidence of it coming. All right, so I think the next slide is Tim's line. Tim's line for winter, 39 gigawatts. The winner goes to Lisa. Did anybody else have 39? Okay. And then Tim's summer line was 37 gigawatts. Cindy has 38 gigawatts. No, 37. Sorry, I said, yep, 37. Okay, so lots of discussion here about winter and summer peaks. I mean, that's a lot higher than it is right now, right? And it's, again, this is just 5 years from now. I feel like 3 years ago, if we would have played this game and we predicted what demand might be, there would have been a little bit of, little increase, but not a significant increase, right? So there's a lot going on here in the region with the, I just flipped to my wrong card, sorry. On winter, but I did want to say, just reported by Northwest Power and Conservation staff, current numbers for summer, 33,300 megawatts, that's summer. That was for July 2024, so that's July's actuals. Much lower than what we predicted here. And then for winter, 35,700 megawatts. So, any thoughts on, you got close to Tim's line. Lisa, why do you think it's going to grow to 36?
Well, I think that's just gonna be in Idaho at the rate we're growing.
You gotta grab the mic and say that again.
I'm kidding. I said it, I think 36 is just for Idaho at the rate we're growing. I mean, there just is tremendous growth in so many sectors, and as people are sort of moving around, they're also wanting the comfort of how they lived wherever they came from. So air conditioning is just continuing to grow. You look at mining and manufacturing and housing. There's just so much growth happening that, and that's not even saying about the hyperscalers. So it's just such an incredible time right now. And you look at the trajectory, and if we just sort of look through the filter of Idaho, which may be a little bit skewed, although when I talk to my peers here, I don't know that it is, that we're all experiencing this, and it's not just, there's some of it that we're kind of going, is it really going to happen? Sure, but I'm talking about the cranes that are in the air, and so it just seems like the visibility we have into the future, for what it's worth, I just think there is real growth, and it's our job to make sure that we're ready to serve it.
It's probably not going to be in Idaho, but it is, there's a lot of growth in this region, for sure. Winter, I see numbers really high. How do you get there? Mary, you've got 46,000 megawatts for winter peak.
Josh, how do we get to No, I'm just kidding. So these are actually the roll-ups of utility load forecasts in the region. And think about this, it only includes large, committed firm loads. So that data center question that I put on here, I think it could be higher. So we kind of see this as the floor.
Yep, that data center demand. Anybody want to take a guess? Jessica, you did there on how much of that peak demand will be attributed to data centers. I see you wrote down 4 to 6 gigawatts of demand from data centers. Any thoughts about why so high?
Well, we cover 25 co-ops in 7 states, and a lot of the data centers moving to our areas because there's no more land in Puget and Seattle and Boise, although there's more in Boise. And there's next to the rivers. So if you can think about what co-ops are located, they're farmland next to water, irrigation, so it's a lot cheaper. And we actually have enough demand for about 4 gigawatts in the next 5 years or so, they say. So we'll see what comes in, but I would say we have about 2 gigawatts that are breaking ground next year, so that has started.
Elliot?
Maybe just in the spirit of stimulating debate, our view, the team kind of, ran with Russians and looked at numbers and basically asked the question of, since we're talking about observed coincident peak and everybody's focusing on super peak, how much flexibility will the data centers bring to the grid? I think that's just an interesting question. I know in areas that are power constrained or transmission constrained, we know there's a big imperative of economic development to get these guys on the system, grow the denominator, ... But if you're coming on faster than your RA curve, you're going to have to bring something to the system. So it's just going to be, watching Texas and watching other places, trying to figure out, is there actually some legitimate load flex feature of these resources that can take a little bit of the bite out of the super peak?
I'm glad you brought that up. There was a panel yesterday, some interesting ideas from Tyler Norris and Long Lam about the flexibility of data centers. And I heard some conversation, after, it would have been maybe really interesting to hear data center perspective on how much they are thinking about how they can be flexible. What I heard the expert from SRP say is, right now their customers want as much as they can get. And I heard a lot. That was a great panel. Thanks to NewsData for getting those experts to share how they're serving large loads. But this peak could be less if we had some flexibility. That's what I heard Elliot say. Cindy?
Yeah, and Crystal, I just want to echo the tightening between winter and summer, because we've always been winter peaking, right? And it's slowly eroding so that diversity benefit, right? And I do think that it is the combination of data centers, but I also think it's what Lisa was talking about. We're seeing a lot of influx of growth coming from other states, and plus we are seeing hotter temperatures, right? And in the Pacific Northwest, lived there for almost 25 years, rarely ever turned my air conditioner on, right? Much faster to turn the air conditioner on today than I ever would have been. And a lot of people are coming in and they like to have the comfort of having the air conditioner on. And so I just think we're going to continue to see that. And it's an underlying strength of that tightening with the summer coming up, I think.
Cindy, thank you for just coming back to that. It's something that we've tried to do at PNUCC in the Northwest Regional Forecast. When we show the forecast and we show summer getting closer to winter, it's a challenge on the system. When do you schedule maintenance? There's no cushion. You have enough in winter, but there was some expectation that you would be able to maintain that resource, and it's just getting tighter and tighter. So thanks for coming back to that.
I also wanted to echo what Elliot said, for the flexibility with data centers. I think we're not where we need to be on that. And certainly as utilities, because of our requirement to plan to meet what shows up, we need to have contractually binding flexibility, just like we do with our industrial customers. And I don't think we're too close on that right now as an industry with our customers. And that's an area we really need to focus on jointly with the customer.
Operators need to know during those peak times that that is going to be there for them. Yes. What do you think it'll take?
Again, I would emphasize super peak times, right? You've got to have some legitimate growth, you've got to plan for the resources. But, you look at the low duration curves on some of these systems that are driven by 60, 70, 80, 100 hours a year, 6,000, 7,000 megawatt deltas. That's a lot of money. and a lot of value didn't come off for relatively short periods of time.
All right, I knew we'd have a lot of content here. Let's move on to the third question, because we had 5. Unless there was something else you wanted to add. Hyperscalers. Okay. All right, question number 3. Well, I'll read the question maybe while we... Question number 3. Maybe you can advance the slides over there. We're going to talk about natural gas because what we know is that natural gas is a big driver of prices in the West. And natural gas prices can be volatile. Let's just say that. We've seen price spikes during cold snaps, and we've seen long stretches of relatively low prices. But looking out, is there any way to get that? Here's the data. Are we on the right slide? Thank you. All right. Looking out to 2030, thinking about the pipeline capacity issues that we heard on the panel yesterday, LNG exports that really haven't been talked about, that data center demand and extreme weather, that all comes into play. So the question here, where did Tim set the line for the ICE daily index price for natural gas for deliveries at SUMAS for 2030? Again, so looking out 5 years, where did Tim set the line? This is for the what these CEOs think it will actually cost to buy gas delivered into the Northwest. And why that's important is because gas really does set that electricity prices. Somebody said it earlier today too. Looking at this data, I said gas prices, what we know about gas prices is they can be volatile. There have been long stretches of price stability, but when we look at the last few years, it's been up, it's been up, it's been down. So for the CEOs,
Crystal, I think the next slide
thank you.
is a little bit of a cheat sheet.
Oh, thank you. We gotta get through this data, and I appreciate you keeping track of it. Are you adjusting? Tim, the Henry Hub is on the lower, that's the orange. SUMAS is the upper. I still can't see, okay.
Here, I can
Thank you,
sure.
help me out.
So it's a stock ticker for the January 2030 SUMAS contract in blue and the Henry Hub in orange. And you can see there's a huge premium for SUMAS. And where's SUMAS going to actually be when we come to 2030 in January?
Tim, there's not another slide, right? If I don't want to advance. Stop. All right, so we're going to do this with the, where did Tim set the line for the ICE daily index price for natural gas? Lisa, we'll start with you. I can't see it, so. There you go, $3.95. Mary, $5. Jessica, $4.50. Cindy, $4.25. And Elliot, $7. Oh, wow. All right. Any thoughts on this before we reveal Tim's line? Elliot, why $7?
Well, I feel like this is an area where in probably lean on the team even harder on this one. I mean, it's just there's so many variables in gas. It just feels so hard to predict. There's so many countervailing things in the inflation and tariffs and all that. We just kind of, forward curves can be pretty smart. January is interesting. SUMAS is super volatile. We kind of looked at basically the curve and said, are you kind of bearish or bullish? We're a little bit bullish relative to, we know the LNG exports, I think we're focused primarily on Japan. There's a lot of gas leaving that area. There's more demand. You're going to have higher capacity factors on gas plants and maybe a bit slower gas to electric conversion. So we said, let's figure the closer to $7. That was the thought process.
All right, high gas prices, high electricity prices. No? All right, let's read the line. You're pretty close, you and Tim. Tim thinks the line will be $6.50 on the gas prices. Lisa, what are you thinking about?
Well, again, I don't think I'll tell you what my team thinks. Our team is calling it lower because they think that the market is not pricing in all the development of resources up in Canada, of renewable resources, solar, battery, wind, that will free up some gas. And so that was their call. They think it's gonna be lower.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in on why they set it where they set? Elliot, you were like manager of the BPA training floor, so you kind of
20 years ago.
Yes. Mary, I saw you grabbed me.
I think, Elliot, our analysis was similar to his. You know, if you look at the forward price curve right now, it's trading a little north of 6. And we just maybe see a little more putting a thumb on the scale of the bearish fundamentals. Like we think production is going to increase, talks of some of that LNG, but this one is impossible to predict. And if we could predict this, none of us would be sitting here. So there you go.
It is good to think about how high they might get based on that historical information. Tim, anything you want to add there?
Mary, I use that line all the time. I knew the answer, why would I be here? This is the one that scares me, because Sumas is a very constrained spot. In Idaho, you don't have to worry about this, because you get Northwest Pipe before it hits the compression, or the Roosevelt constraint. And the gas coming down GTN from Canada is different than Sumas. This is like a thing that could be a thing. And the number of factors that could make it take off is significant. And it could also be boring, but that's why horses race.
That's why horses race. All right, let's move on to question number 4. We've got more data. Question number 4 is about electricity prices at mid-C. Again, forward-looking January 30 and August 2030. So January 2030 and August 2030. Tim has set the line based on historical ICE on-peak prices and peak demand patterns. So CEOs, where did Tim set the over-under for the ICE daily on-peak index price for the standard ICE Mid-Columbia product to settle for January 2030 to August 2030? For January 2030 and August 2030. I can see why you had to rely on your staff. These questions were pretty intense. We've talked about winter events, price spikes, increasing summer demand, resource additions that went into the thoughts about the gas prices. So we're going to ask the CEOs to reveal their. I got 2 more slides. There's cheats in here. I just keep forgetting about them. Thank you. So the first one, historical. This one looking at peaks, the August 2030 as the summer on the orange, and then the January winter, that blue. Those are like for that summer, 114. That's pretty good price for power. Yeah.
And there's one more, just.
And in winter, $88. One more slide. Is that what you're saying? There we go. Okay.
So I wanted you to have the summer gas price, 280 in MMBtu as soon as in the summer, and 630 or 650 or 7, whatever you think for the winter. But the very different gas prices, winter and summer.
Okay, so Tim's data showed pretty high prices. We're going to look at the CEOs. What's your price? Thank you, Lisa. Lisa has January at $85 a megawatt hour and August at $100 a megawatt hour. Mary, $85 a megawatt hour, August, 79 megawatt hour. Jessica, January, $70 a megawatt hour, August, $85 a megawatt hour. January right here, that's different, that's 65 megawatt hour, so a little different from everybody else. August, 85, same as Jessica. And Elliot, $80 in January and $90 in August. Not as high as that sheet on that, right there, not as high, but still, I mean, that's a pretty good price for power. that can challenge the affordability. We've talked about affordability too. Anybody want to start with some of the talking points their staff gave about why they picked this number?
She's clearly concluded that the arts are talking points.
Taking our notes.
Let me read you from my book right here. Our team is really thinking that where it's last settled, right? We looked at where it's last settled for 2030, and that it's not factoring in the likelihood of all the resources that could probably come on by 2030, especially under the gold rush events and everything else that we have been triggered. So that's why we're optimistic it'll be lower than that dramatic look on the screen.
Good point, Cindy.
I think our thought process was roughly similar, looking at the forwards, which are forward contracts, not settled dailies, little forward premium. Also, the August implied heat rate was something like 35,000. That's pretty high. And we're seeing this classic August right now. Nervous, and Mother Nature. So I think we're based off a little bit settling below the forwards, and a summer that's hot but not crazy hot.
Lisa, were you thinking it would be a hot, crazy hot summer with those August at $100 a megawatt hour?
It's entirely possible, but I had 2 pages of my team disagreeing on the answers. So I don't know which answer to give you, but so some of the things that they were pointing to on what might drive higher costs, certainly increasing load, uncertainty around resource additions and what can actually get built, and increased demand on the gas system that we just talked about, so it could potentially increase gas prices, and also variability in weather. So drivers for lower estimate was that that we build everything, all the resources get built that need to be built to meet the growing loads, that we may get a bilateral capacity market, right? You can have a dream. And then shift in, so that may actually help lower the daily prices.
Well, let's reveal Tim's line.
Can I
yes.
say something just really quick? Because we actually still have a lower summer price than winter price. And I thought that was interesting because everybody else is assuming a higher summer price.
Yes.
To me, the really interesting thing though is times of scarcity, right? Like someone mentioned earlier this morning, the Martin Luther King Day event. When we have those scarcity events going on, the excursions and pricing we're seeing make PJM look rational. I mean, it is really, really tough. And I think that's what we should be focusing on.
Mary, thank you. In the data, we see that Martin Luther King Day price at, right there in 2024, January, price was $250 a megawatt.
No, it blows our scale. Yeah.
Blows our scale, thank you. Yeah, so very good point. Yeah, scarcity pricing is real. All right, so we're gonna reveal Tim's line. Tim's winter, $83 a megawatt hour. Tim's August, $62 a megawatt hour. Very different, Tim and Lisa.
Yep. You're right. One of us can be right.
That's the idea here, thinking about the future. It's very uncertain. Okay, we're gonna talking about uncertainty. We're gonna switch
Hey, Crystal, we're recording this, right? Because I might need to show my shareholder how unpredictable our future is. And then I'm never gonna get it right, okay?
Get it right. Yeah, no. Did somebody say this on forecasting? If you're always wrong, just sometimes you're more wrong. Who said that yesterday? It was good. Okay, uncertainty. We're going to switch to something that's very uncertain and sometimes frustrating. Transmission. And Tim wouldn't even touch this. He phoned a friend, right? It is quite uncertain. We don't know really the question. I should read the question. The question is where did Tim set the over-under for the average, this is
Okay, I need to explain this a little bit, thank you. Average annual megawatt miles of transmission build in the WEC during the years 2030 through 2035. So again, this is a 5-year period and we're looking for an average one number. And this takes math, and so I asked my friend Paul Dockery for help. We were thinking about Boardman to Hemingway as an example. Lisa and Cindy, you are too, good. And so what we're looking for is that average annual megawatt miles in transmission build. And if you think about Boardman to Hemingway, it's carrying capacity 1,400 megawatts, the number of miles, 290 miles, and so that's line capacity times distance, and we're getting to, the megawatt miles for Boardman to Hemingway, 406,000. So when Tim, you, to set this line, to give some historic, you went to a PNNL study, right? That's where we landed with this picture. PNNL study, I think this was done for just in the last few years on what could get built under a scenario. I think that's a high renewable energy scenario. So that's a lot of transmission to integrate a lot of renewables. And then he asked Rob Gramlich and his team at Grid Strategies for an estimate. Because what we know about transmission, very uncertain, we don't know what will be built. But let's, kind of explaining the math here a little bit, looking at this map, seeing a lot of transmission, where did the CEO set the line for megawatt miles that will get built, one number on average over the 5 years? Lisa has 2.5 million megawatt miles.
Divided by 6, sorry, I didn't read my own writing.
Okay, I get it, that's why you got to, we did this, yes. You have time. And I think Mary too, on a million miles.
Sorry, Jared, I just.
No, I think this is right, yeah. 625.
Yes.
Okay, so yours is a little lower than Mary's. Jessica was like, I won't even go there. I don't know how much it's gonna get. Or is it 0?
0.
So you're not passing on the guess?
No,
You're just so pessimistic that nothing will get built.
Yes, after 2030, because 0 could be a number. It's
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, 0.
means everything gets built before.
Oh, I love this optimist right here. Everything gets built that we need before 2030. Okay. And then cities 1.2. Elliot?
Is it a million?
A million. Okay. Phoned a friend, and we did some math. We have the picture. 700,000 megawatt miles. So close to Lisa.
Well, Jared, it's really Jared.
Thank you, Jared. But what's significant about the ability to build this much transmission? I think about Boardman to Hemingway. I think about the number of years that we have been expecting Boardman to Hemingway to be under construction and online. Lisa, how long has Boardman to Hemingway been in the making?
19 years. And we did turn dirt, so it's going, so super excited about that. So yeah, I mean, it is not easy to build, and permitting and siting is one of the biggest impediments of that. The process is just broken, and there has to be better ways to make sure that the public is meaningfully involved and we're dealing with issues. So I'm not suggesting that we wouldn't have that, but we've got to make sure that it isn't 19 years and we're arguing the same issues over and over and over and over. And you know, I feel like we're at a point now where a lot of those lines on that map are moving. I mean, so it's happening. So I think that it is exciting right now to see that. And you know, as soon as those lines get built, you know, you can't wait another 19 years for the next one. So if we're really going to have the kind of leadership that we want on all of the technologies and all the things that we say is a matter of national security, we have got to be building the infrastructure that supports that. And so again, it just comes back to permitting and siting and reforming that. So it's not for the faint of heart. I know people thought we were completely nuts for trying it even back then. I might agree with them. Had I known it was going to take 19 years, I probably would have encouraged us to build something else. But now that we're here and we have a permitted line, it's going to make a huge difference for reliability, for affordability, to really help make sure that we can serve these growing loads that are really good for each of our states and ultimately good for our customers. So it's great.
Hey Lisa, in the Misery Loves Company vein, PSC has a project called the Energize East Side, which is now complete, thankfully, but it's 16 miles of reconductoring from 115 to 230 kV, and it took 10 years to just reconductor. And so I think both of these are kind of cases that show the need for permitting reform. We're also going to need help, I think, though, on supply chain.
Yeah.
TBD on that, that's going to be interesting. And then the other thing I would say is, and we haven't really talked about the financial aspect of things today, but we've got to find a way to be able to have enough cash flow to make these work. So I'm a huge fan of being able to obtain equip, not just waiting until it's actually in service, so we can actually cash flow these long-term projects.
Good points. Cindy, you want to say anything about that?
Well, I was just going to echo what Lisa said on board member. I mean, maybe it's we're partners on that thing. We had the same experience, the Gateway program and several of our lines in Gateway South and everything took many years. We've got several of the segments and some of the largest ones already in now. We do have additional segments that we are waiting for the loads and revenues and the recovery to justify moving, building them. And so they, in that window, 2030 to 2035. But the environment, in order to cash flow these things, as well as ensure recovery for our investors, right? Because we are experiencing some challenges in some of the regulatory recovery avenues, and that is a really bad signal to the market.
Bad signal to the market. Cindy, what do you think can help with that problem in the regulatory arena?
Well, I think it's not really, the transmission isn't the problem, right? It's the confluence of rate affordability.
Yeah.
Right, and it's the buildup of the rate affordability challenge, and so we're at a tipping point, and customers can only bear so much, and that's why how this gets paid, who pays for it ultimately, I think becomes a critical component as to whether or not this infrastructure continues to get built in the 10 years that follow 2030.
Yeah, a little bit of a perfect storm though, with having it taken so long to get these projects into construction and to the point where you are asking for rate recovery at the same time that rates have just continued to go up. So, Jessica.
Can I explain my zero?
Yes, please.
So I have to confess, I do have to make a major confession. I do not have a lot of staff, but I did use probably about 100,000 brains. So I did use ChatGPT. Yes. So I took all your data and I scraped the internet, and so I think I'm right over you. I better be, because the amount of effort we all are putting into getting these data centers online, it better be for something. So, no, but in all reality, I put zero because, again, these PNGC used to be just a transactional group where we just manage Bonneville's contracts with our members. But because of all these power issues that we're having, this group of co-ops decided to build their own generation. So we're trying to get to 1,000 in the next probably 5 to 6 years of generation. We're trying to be the answer to a lot of these issues, and we're trying to locate the generation in areas where it's not transmission constrained. But I get zero because we cover 7 states, and what I've been doing is turning every piece of rock over to see what kind of generation is available and getting built. That's why I don't think a lot is gonna get built, because when I find it, I can't move it to load, ever. And it's really difficult. I only have about 3 projects right now where I can get built in the next 6 years at our capacity to meet RAP, which we talked about yesterday. I don't really want wind and solar unless there's an ability to firm it quickly and at a good price point, because of affordability of our areas. We can't pay for a lot of high prices. So I put 0 because I don't see the transmission getting built. Except for these groups that were brought up yesterday, the Western Transmission Consortium and West Tech. I mean, I know there's a lot of transmission groups that have been formed and then went away and then formed, so I hope this one sticks. I do see it's a great effort to bring public and private partnerships together, and hopefully Bonneville engages as well. And maybe the federal government putting in money, but it's gonna have to deal with going across state lines and developing in states, which we all know is almost impossible. So I'm kind of depressed. That's why I put that here. But I think the key is I guess work with our legislators and try to relax some regulations.
That citing and permitting and reform, really thinking about the lessons learned and then applying those and get some action on that. Elliot?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good conversation, and I find myself being able to kind of put myself into each of these, perspectives and validate. I think what gives us a little bit of hopefulness, listening to many of you guys you're all principals in transmission development, right? You're the ones deploying capital, looking at partnerships and load service obligations, and we're a transmission planner, et cetera. But we've also, and you heard some of this from Neil Miller here, we've found that the business case for transmission is just getting sharpened and sharpened. We're seeing some really innovative partnerships. We're very proud of what's going on with SunZia. Obviously it's Swift North, the Transwest Express. These are projects that are rooted in commercial business interests, and I think you're going to see more and more of that. So my team actually said we need a B2H and a SunZia every other year. And that's how we came up with
both lines every year.
Every other year you need to do a B2H and you have a SunZia. And just
that's a lot of megawatt
a lot
lines.
of transmission the West is going to need, and I think that there's fabulous opportunities to continue stitching the West together in a really productive and reliable fashion.
And I think what we've heard from a few years of conversation about transmission is regulators, consumers, they want to make sure that entities building transmission are building the right transmission, and that there is coordination among the players. So I think about West Tech and that unprecedented partnership, and when that partnership started, it was largely because the states were saying, we want you to build the right transmission, and we want you to have a plan that's an investment grade transmission plan. So appreciate everybody that's been part of that unprecedented partnership, and I think there's really hope that West Tech will continue to be repeatable and give regulators confidence that the entities building transmission are building the right lines. Tim, anything you want to add to the transmission? Okay. It was smart to call to phone a friend, I think. That's a lot of uncertainty. All right, this is a wrap on our game. Again, it was What's the Line? So thanks to our panelists for engaging in this and doing some research to bring to the end of the conversation. Really appreciate that. Tim, thanks for doing so much homework and sharing the data. We've shared our data with NewsData, and so if you're interested in that background, it should be made available. Yes, it's publicly available, but I really appreciate your partnership, Tim, in helping me set this up. I want to ask the panelists a final question, though, and we'll spend some time here. I know that we're short on attention, so we won't take too much time. But I think at the end of this 2-day conference with all of this information, a lot of people have stayed here to really get your thoughts about the future. And so given what we've just discussed through our What's the Line game on demand and supply, power prices, what solutions should the region be focused on now to ensure reliability and affordability in the future? I'll give you just a minute to think about that. And the question is, what solutions should the region be focused on now to ensure reliability, affordability in the future? Anyone want to go first?
No.
You don't have to write it down.
This was not part of the test.
I love it, Mary. One word. I can't wait for this.
Mary, we can wing this one. It's not a test. This is something we can actually wing. It's what we normally do. And I'm not going to say this just because I'm sitting next to Elliot, but certainly at PacifiCorp, from a reliability, affordability in the future, the extended day-ahead market is right there knocking on our door, and it is the evolution of a very valuable proving ground with the energy imbalance market that has delivered billions of benefits to customers throughout the entire western U.S. And certainly a billion marks, a B behind our benefits to the PacifiCorp customers across our 6 states. So staying the course, having as seamless as possible market throughout the West is how we get to the greatest benefit, both for reliability, but also for affordability for our customers. And then I would emphasize resource adequacy, as also something that really has to be we have to get that in place, but it has to be workable and balanced for all in that. And I think those two are near term and can be extremely powerful and set up a trajectory to where we can deliver all the challenges that we have, or opportunities. It just depends on which glass, if you're the empty glass or the full glass, and deliver on those opportunities, but do it in the most affordable way possible for our customers, because that's why we're here. We're here to support our customers. We're here to drive the economies of our communities and our states, and affordability puts that in jeopardy if it's not managed.
Cindy, I hear you say build on the benefits of the Western energy markets, take resource adequacy very seriously, and do it to maintain affordability for consumers and customers.
That's correct.
Anybody else? What solutions do we need to be focused on? Mary has a one-word answer.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna go one word. Cindy told me I can't. And I actually want to echo or use Cindy's framework, because I do think reliability and affordability are the keys. And right now, we haven't really talked about affordability a lot on this panel. You raised it once before, but our customers are feeling the pinch. And so everything we can do to make things more affordable is clearly helpful. So on that front, and Washington State is in a little bit of a different position than some others, but in Washington State, we need capacity. At PS, we need dispatchable capacity, to be explicit. And at PSC, in compliance with our laws, we've dipped our toe in the water of many things. We've made a small investment in small modular reactors. We've participated in a hydrogen hub. We've looked at other things. But the fact of the matter is, and we're getting out of coal at the end of this year consistent with our laws, we need to build gas plants. And that is the technology that exists today that will be affordable and reliable for our customers, and we need to be able to do it. And on top of that, I would add, we've got to have just getting rid of some of the red tape around things, permitting reform, less litigious processes. Everyone should have a voice, but in an orderly, time-bound fashion, because these proceedings also add costs to our customers.
Mary, I'm glad you didn't write that all down. But it was close to a one-word answer. We need dependable capacity, need to build natural gas plants. Jessica, any thoughts about that?
Well, I agree, we have to build gas, and we are building gas, but we were just talking about this a little bit, is that we're building natural gas and we're gonna send it to our members in Washington, but they're gonna have to add like $25 to $30 per megawatt hour on top of the cost of the gas. And so my Idaho members next door are gonna have to pay less. So what's gonna happen to those communities in Washington where they're gonna have to pay that much more? Are the farmers and ranchers gonna move to Idaho and Montana and Wyoming because it's cheaper to operate there? So I don't think folks in Washington, Oregon that are putting these laws together have thought about what it's gonna do to the economy of those states. So those are just things, we always talk about how we do want affordability and all these things, but how does it work in practicality, right? So again, I'm building a gas plant, there's not a lot of places to build in the Northwest, I've looked at 7 states. Idaho Power took the last capacity of gas on one of the pipelines, thank you very much. But we're all scrambling to buy the capacity, so people forget, it's not just land we have to buy, transmission we have to build, it's the gas pipeline, and it's the gas availability. And it is the biggest chessboard I've ever seen, and it's almost, it's possible, but it needs to take everybody coming together to find a solution.
Collaborative approach.
Well, I always like to remind people that when you think about the electric grid, you know, I'm in full disclosure, I'm a complete nerd about it, but it is the marvel of mankind, I think. When you think about what it is, what it does for all of us, how critical our quality of life is upon it, we just have this incredible responsibility. And I think sometimes people forget that it really is hard to do, as people do anything. We don't need those utilities, we'll just go do it ourselves. And in general, they come back and go, you know, that is actually hard to do. So I want to say 2 things about our industry. One, we all participate in that magnificent machine. And so we all have a responsibility to one another to make it reliable, make it affordable. It is absolutely critical to the people we serve. And our industry has a history of partnership and sharing and figuring things out together, because when you're part of a single, you know, arguably one big machine, there's nothing that each of us do that doesn't somehow affect the other one. So we just have to really be aware of that we're all in this together. And I think I like to remind people that having the regulatory compact, I think, is something that I believe brings great value, that in exchange for our franchise territory, we have the obligation to serve. And I just feel like that sometimes gets lost in the noise. I think that we do have to build an incredible amount of infrastructure to meet this growing load. And we do so in a very transparent way. We are balancing all of the needs and all of the challenges of reliability, affordability, and before all that, it's safety. You know, the investments we have to make in our wildfire mitigation. There's so many things that we are called to do that I think gets lost in it. So in just sort of the noise of the day and the sound bites that people seem to take as fact. So I think if we stay science-based, if we stay together, we work together, we solve the problems together, that is what has got us to this point, and I think it's what will carry us to the future. So it feels a little bit, you know, cheerleading, I guess, but I just think that is so incredibly important, because I can make a long list of all the resources and stuff we need to build. It's how we do it, it's how we communicate about it, it's how we deliver it. So I just appreciate all of you, because you are all partners in that. And so anyway, I'll get with myself up, sorry.
Please start with that. Since there's a clap there. Lisa, I just want to appreciate you for challenging all of us in this room to continue to work together. Elliot, do you have any thoughts about how we all work together?
Well, I thought what each of my fellow panelists just said was spot on, and I really resonated with Lisa's last one. So I was just going to share one of my favorite things to do since I started working at CAISO, particularly in summers. I like to go down to the overlook in our control center, and I like to actually watch the WEIM work, right? And I can, it's really, particularly in summer, just watching the ETSRs, watching power cycling back and forth between the different parts of the West. And it really is sort of the physics and the economics of the collaboration model you just described. And it really always reinforces for me that interdependency. And it's why, you know, we work so hard for that. And I think we're all having to adapt and to change, and to listen better. But I really do believe that we have such a track record of accomplishments together in the Western United States, and we're just going to keep working to support that, and hopefully we can continue supporting each other and make it about physics, economics, and about people working together.
Well, I think this, anybody else? I think this is a great way to end this panel. Optimistic, hopeful. We've asked the CEOs about solutions, but it does seem that, you know, whatever we do, the decisions that the CEOs will make for their companies, that they do think about how interdependent this region is, how we're all in it together, and how that just, I think your encouragement, your call to action, your commitment is that we continue to work together across this Western region. So again, thank you for playing the game with me and for engaging in a different way to end a 2-day conference. Hopefully we brought some energy to the room for everybody who stayed over to hear the insights from these CEOs. I feel very encouraged and appreciate NewsData for pulling this all together and saving the best for last. Thank you.